the one, the only, Ben Sion. Good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, just Daf It, as we continue with Daf It Gittin. Today's Daf is Daf Gittin, number 17. Great share for you today, talking about finishing discussion yesterday about whether two people who come have to say b'fanei nachtam, or just the fact that they come is merely sufficient. And we're starting a new Mishnah, which talks about the concept of Zman being written in the get. You have to write the date the get was written on. And what about if you wrote the get during one day, and then at night, the following night, which is another day in the Jewish calendar, you signed it? What's the ramifications of that? We'll talk about that. Let's get into it. Tetzayim Beis on the bottom, about 7-8 lines from the bottom. 6 lines. Rabba bar Archana Chalash. Archana got sick. All the Gabe, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabba, Lashila, Rahuda, and Rabba came to ask about him, see how he was doing. They asked him, the question we had on Daf Tet Zion. That's the question. They have to say it. He says they don't need to say this. Now, yesterday I proved to you and Ian with Ben Sion that you have to say this. We'll see in a second. But here's a different reason. He doesn't say because the whole problem of finding out and now you have two people to Mekayim the Shara. It's a totally different reason, which was already mentioned on Daf Hey. If two people would come from Nidas Yam and say, we saw the Gerushin, or Edom on the Gerushin, of course they're believed. So similarly over here, right, they're believed. Now, they didn't say anything. They didn't say, we saw the Gerushin. They didn't say, we saw the Ksiva and the Chasima. So did they say anything? So Tosos, I looked this up, and Tosos on the base says they did say something. What he's saying over here, this svara is different than the svara of you don't need Edom Mitzuyim L'Kaim, because you have two Edom over here who could potentially be L'Kaim L'Shar. He's saying they didn't actually say something. They don't say B'fanenu Nechtam. They say B'fanenu, he told us to bring the get. He told us, we're testifying, the Baal sent us to bring. They're not going to show up and based in with the get. They say the husband simply told us, the Edom, right, to go bring this get. So they said something. We'll talk about that in Iyad Ben Sion, why this is significant and why it lends credence to what I said yesterday. In the meantime, Asahu Chavra, while they were talking, a certain Chavra, Cossack, a guy who was doing pogroms, I don't know, Shakla L'Shraga Mikamayu, he wanted to cause harm to the Jews in Bavel. He took away their light. They couldn't see. Amar Rahmana, when they saw this, they were taking advantage of these gangs, these people the pogroms. Amar Rahmana, Betulcha Devar Esav. You'd rather be in your shade, or the shade of people who descended from Esav, Amorayim, or the Romans. We'll see in a second. L'meimra Daromai, Malumi Parsai, Daromai, right? Arami Ovid Avi. The Arameans were descended from Esav. Also, the Romans were descended from Esav. But I believe Aromai, even though the article says you change Aromai to Romai, I don't believe that's true. And there's a place called Aramai. It's the lashon of the Gemara. Arami Ovid Avi. There's a place of Aram. Aram is a place also that descended from Esav. They're better than the Parsai, the Persians who dominated Bavel. V'hatani Rabbi Chia, Ma'id Yichsiv, Rabbi Chia taught in a Braisa. What's the explanation of the pasuk? Elokim Havian Darkov Huyada Es Makoma. Hashem understood the place, the way, and he knew the place. Yodei HaKadosh Baruch Yisrael Shein Yichol Lekabel Gzeiras Aromayim. Hashem knew they wouldn't be able to tolerate the descendants of Esav or the Aromayan. Amad v'higlo Hashem leBavel, and therefore he put them in exile in Bavel. Bavel's better. The Gemara is lo kash. Before the people came and started organizing pogroms in Bavel, it was better to be in Babylonia. Afterwards, it was better to be in Aromai, in Aram. The Mishnah says, one person says Fani Nechtav, and two people say Fani Nechtav. Everyone agrees, even the Rabbanan agree, it's kosher. Amar Rabbi Ami, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Lo Shana Lo Shak Get Yosef Mitachas Adei Ksiva. This Mishnah, this stanza in the Mishnah is only talking about where they come separately, but the person who is a singular witness who's testifying at the Ksiva, he's the one who comes first to base, and he says, Fani Nechtav, Fani Nechtav. They're not so Gishnayim al Zeh, but Gishnayim al Zeh, because you have right? The Rabban believed one person who says Rafani Nechtav or Rafani Nechtan as two people. And therefore, when the second two people come, they're believed on the Chasima. You have Shtayim al Shtayim. If it would first come, right, the 80 Chasim would come into the basin and say, then it would be puzzle. Meaning, they're the ones holding the get. They have to say it, right? Even if it's mashma that it came in the hands of the 80 Chasima and not the 8 Ksiva, then it would be possible, unless they actually said Fanenu Nechtav, Fanenu Nechtav. So you have to actually say it, which was the machlokas we had yesterday. In the Reisha, which is the opposite case, two people said it was written in front of us, and one person said it was signed in front of us. It's possible. Yehuda Machshir. The Rabbanan say it's possible. Yehuda says it's kosher. If you get Yosef Mitachas Yadei possibly Rabbanan, the Rabbanan are going to possible, even though the get came out from the hands of both of them. They ksiva, they're possible. Right? Because they have to say, it's true. It's true. Yes, you're right. A different time he found they were saying, we'll see exactly the opposite. But the last case in the Mishnah, even if the ones, right, one person testified to the ksiva and two people testified to the chasima, if they come first, the ones with the chasima, kosher, they don't have to say it. So since they don't have to say it, even though they did say it, but even though they don't say it, so therefore the person who comes afterwards and says Rafani Nechtav, he's believed like Shtayim, and it works out. In the previous case in the Mishnah, possible, Rido Machshir. Rabbanan say it's possible, Rido says it's kosher. The reason is the get is not coming out from the hands of both of them. If the Rabbanan, right, if it would come out of the hands of both of them, right, meaning there's two people on the chasima, they're Rabbanan Machshir, even without saying it. It's true, right? They asked, but there were other times you didn't say it like that. You said it the previous way. There were two different discussions, which are the opposite. Amar la yesid he shalotamud. It's a peg that should not loosen. So the way the art scroll understands this is that basically the second version is correct, that they do not have to say Fanenu Nechtav, Fanenu Nechtav. But to me, it makes more sense. Like I said yesterday in Ben Sion, halacha is they do have to say Fanenu Nechtav, Fanenu Nechtav. I'm going to add something on in Ben Sion based on Tosfos and Avbeis today and explain it based on what I'm saying about Kiyam Shtaros by Gittin. But usually when you say Yesed Hi Shelo Tamud, meaning the original peg shouldn't move, right? The first discussion is what the true one, right? Yesed Hi meaning it was planted, it was a screw that was in the ground, a peg that was in the ground. The peg was in the ground. It's not a new peg. It's the first discussion in Shelo Tamud. If that was true, the first discussion also happened. That's the peg that was already in there. It shouldn't loosen. A new peg, right? It's not should loosen. He should have said, "I'm putting the new peg in right now." The second discussion is the correct discussion. Really saying yes, it shelo tamut. The first discussion is the right discussion, and therefore they have to say Vani Netam, or according to Tosas and Avbeis, they can at least say the husband told us to bring this get. The Mishnah says Nechtav b'yom v'nechtam b'al yom. If the get was written during the day and signed that very day, Balayla v'nechtam balayla, or it was written at night, you can write a get at night, and it was signed at the night. Balayla, or it was written at night, v'nechtam b'yom, was signed during the day, which is all the day, the halachic day of Judaism starts at night and goes to the day. Kosher, it's kosher in all those cases. There's no problem with this zman in an accurate date. But yom v'nechtam balayla, let's say it was written during the day and it was signed at night, in which case, right, the shtar does not take effect until it's signed, and it was signed at night, so it's basically a predated. Right, you wrote the date. Let's say it was, what's today? I don't know. Let's say Ted Vav Sivan, and then it was signed at night. So it really only went into effect on Ted Zion Sivan, but it's written Ted Vav Sivan. Possible. The Gemara will explain why it's possible according to the bottom. But Shimon Machshir, or Shimon says nonetheless, even if it's predated, it would be okay by a get. Every other type of star in the world doesn't have the right date on it. Right, for example, it was written during the day and signed at night. Psulin, apostle chutz megidei nashim, except for gidei nashim, which are good. And the Gemara says, "Itmar, why did they make it takana to write the date in Gittin? Why is it so important? technically we're going to see midoraisa. It's okay without it, like we learned earlier in the Masechta. Midoraisa, it's a good get. Midorabanan, it's not a good get if you don't write the zman. So why were they masakin to write this zman? You're worried about a case where it's perfectly permissible for an uncle to marry his niece, according to the Torah. It's even recommended, the Gemara says, an uncle should marry his niece. But if you're married to your niece, she's family. Let's say your niece cheats on you. So if it was a regular woman who's not related to you, right? So you're not going to worry about protecting her. Even if she committed this, you're going to want to get her in trouble and be chayav her misa. But let's say your niece cheats on you. So you have compassion. She's a member of your family. So therefore, right, what you'll do is you'll write the get now and you'll sign it at night. And even though it can't be signed until the night, right, you'll make sure to write it right now. I'm sorry. If you don't write a zman, so, right, we have Aiden that said she was mazana with a man, right? Let's say they said it was Tedvav Nisivan. She was mazana with a man. So if you don't write a zman, he'll write a get immediately to his niece, and she'll claim the get was given before this nus, before the adultery, and therefore not responsible because you're right, not supposed to be with a strange man, but I wasn't married to another man. Adultery, if she's married to one woman, if she cheats on another man, she's chayav chanek, she's death penalty. But he says the reason it's important to write a date is because of the payros. Right, one of the rights that a baal has, a husband has, is that if she has property which she brings into the marriage called nichsei mulug, that's some barzel he gets to use in the marriage. But nichsei mulug, basically it's land with fruits. He gets to eat those fruits, the payros. Think of it, in the stock market. She has a stock portfolio. The dividends he gets to eat, but or the profits he gets to eat, the payros. But the actual Karen, the actual amount that she brought in her stock portfolio, she doesn't get to eat. But the question is, how long is he entitled to the payrolls? Once she's divorced, he's no longer entitled to those dividends, to those profits. Rish Lakish. So therefore, it's important to write the zman, so the husband shouldn't claim, oh, no, right? The get happened much later on, and all those dividends I'm entitled to. Rish Lakish, my time Lama Rabbi Yochanan. Why did Rish Lakish not say like Rabbi Yochanan? Amar Lecha Znus Lo Shchira. It's not adultery. It's not common. It's not common for people to cheat. Now we pass Rabbi Yochanan, who probably argues that it is common. That's why he said the reason. Rabbi Yochanan, my time Lama Rish Lakish. Why didn't he say Rish Lakish? Also makes sense for Rish Lakish's opinion. And we're not so worried about this because normally the way we pass him like Rabbi Lezer, the Eidim is Sira cars, and there's Eidim when the get was given over. So that's really when the get takes effect. So it doesn't make a difference the writing or the signing of the get. It doesn't make a difference. It was written earlier. If it was written 10 days earlier and then it was given 10 days later, the Baal is entitled rightfully to those dividends, to those fruits. Payros are not fruits necessarily. They could be if she has an orchard and fruits, but payros in modern day terms, financial terms, are dividends and profits of the stock made. If she traded stock, she made a trade, she earned profits or dividends on the stocks. Those are payros that the husband gets. So you get that Ashas Nesina, so therefore it's rightfully his. According to Rish Lakish's reason, because of payros, of the dividends, right, that he's going to benefit. So that's why Reb Shimon argues. Shimon says it's kosher by a get. Why is Reb Shimon kosher by a get? Because Reb Shimon does not hold, he holds like Reb Yochanan would say, that it goes to Dil Shas Nesina. So he's not worried about payros. El Reb Yochanan, my time with the Reb Shimon. According to Reb Yochanan, what's the reason of Reb Shimon, right? The Rabbanan are worried about znus, about adultery. Why is Reb Shimon not worried about this? I'm not Rabbi Yochanan say to with Rabbi Shimon lo kamina. He's saying I'm not saying according to Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon has his own reason, which is probably like Rish Lakish because of payros. Kamina Ali with the Rabbanan. I'm saying according to the Rabbanan who are worried about znus. Bishlam with Rabbi Yochanan hainu diika ben Rabbi Shimon and Rabbanan. According to Rabbi Yochanan, there's a very fundamental difference between Rabbi Shimon and the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan say it's a problem of znus. That's why we have to write zman. Rabbi Shimon says it's a problem of payros, like Rish Lakish, and therefore he holds at Shas Nesina. So there's no problem, right? The marriage is not void until Shas Nesina. So therefore he's entitled to those payros. El Rish Lakish ma'ika ben Rav Shimon l'Rabbanan. According to Rish Lakish, who says that the whole concept of zman is because of payros. Really, the get takes effect b'shas ksiva when it's written, and that's when the Baal is no longer entitled to payros. Why is Rav Shimon machshir? Gemara says, "Piri the mishas ksiva v'ashas chasima ika beinayu." You're right. Both Reb Shimon and the Rabbanan agree that the writing and the signing of the get is important, and that's when the marriage technically ends. But Reb Shimon holds the chasima, the signing, was written during the day and signed at night. So therefore, like the Mishnah says, he's not worried because the chasima is what ends the marriage, and it was the right date. According to the Rabbanan, they say it's the ksiva, and the ksiva was written on Ted Vav Nisan, but it really only took effect on Ted Zayin Nisan. It's the wrong date. The Gemara says, we saw the opposite of Yochanan Reish Lakish's opinion. They said exactly the opposite. When do we say that the Baal, the husband who took some of the dividends, the profits, the payrolls from his wife's bank account, he has to return it to his wife? He says once the get is written, the marriage is void. That's until then he can take payrolls. After that, not. But Reish Lakish says, like Yochanan said, until Nesina. The marriage is not over until the get is given over to the woman. Epoch. The Gemara switched it around. That's not the second. This is second iteration of their machlokas is not the correct one. Amalei Abaye the Rav Yosef. Abaye said to Rav Yosef, Gimel Gittin Psulin. But this is a vlad kosher. We had this brisa before. 3 gets. I think it's a Mishnah actually on Daf Pevav. Three types of get are possible midrabanan. And if she got married with this get, it's midaraisa is a good get, and the child she has with the second husband, it's not a mamzer, because technically the rice is a good get. Ma'u ilu, one of these 3 gittin was a get that there was no zman, no time written in it. Ma'u ilu chacham b'takan asam. Right? If it's kosher b'di'evet, so why do they make this takana of writing the zman in a get? Ahanu l'chachil lo tinase. It helped because most people want to do a l'chachil the right way, so therefore most people will write the zman. You're right, technically they don't write the zman, it's not a problem b'di'evet, but most people write the zman. And it would help for whatever reason, Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish said. He continues to ask, how does it help even for that, right? A person, let's say, even wrote this zman, and he can cut it out when he gives it to her, and there'll be no zman. Weren't they worried about that? We're not so concerned about people who are deceitful like this. Not so many people who are deceitful. What about if the time wasn't precise? It didn't say the exact day. It just said which 7-year period or which year it was in, 2023, or which Chodesh, Sivan, or Shabbos, or which week. Would that be okay also? It wasn't the precise date. Amar lei, kosher. It's kosher. It's a kosher get. So what do the Chamim help over there, right? Because it doesn't help you specifically with the payros, according to Reish Lakish, or with znus, according to Rabbi Yochanan. Ahanu, l'shavua, kamei l'shavua, that's right. The ilo, it helps, even if you, in the extreme case, you only wrote the 7-year period. Now we just started a new 7-year period. This is the first year of Shemitah, Motzei Shvias, and last year was a 7-year period. It helps for the Shavuot, Kamei Shavuot, the Basra. According to Rabbi Yochanan, right, it's important to know that it was written during this Shavuot. So therefore, if his niece commits adultery, right, so therefore, if she commits adultery, in the next 7-year period. So you have the get which said, if she commits adultery in the previous 7-year period, so we know they were married, and it takes care of the adultery, that she gets punished rightfully for it. And according to Reish Lakish, it helps for the Shavua afterwards, right? The get is written during this 7-year period. And therefore, the husband's only entitled to pay us for this 7-year period, but not for the next 7-year period. If you don't say this is important, the Zman was only the day. You didn't write exactly the time of the day. Right? When it's written the day, you don't know it's the morning or the night. Chazal wrote it in a general sense, and it helped. They did as precisely as possible. It helps for the day before and the day after. The day before for Rabbi Yochanan's reason was nus, and the day after for Reish Lakish's reason of peiros. Similarly, even if you wrote, you're supposed to write the day, but even if you didn't write it, it helps in a certain sense, at least to clarify these things about the znus, about the adultery and the peiros, in a general sense, and that's good enough. We'll stop over here. Stay tuned for Iyad Ben Sion, where I finish up the discussion I talked about yesterday, how we paskin. I did say how we paskin yesterday about whether 2 Eidim that bring a get and say v'fanayinu nechtam, they have to say v'fanayinu nechtam. I said yesterday they did not have to say that. I'll explain why, and I'll explain that further in light of what the Gemara offers in today's daf. Ian with Ben Sion coming up next.